Okay, welcome back to part 4 of the tutorial, which is actually going to be the final part where we start putting everything together. I just wanted to run over briefly before we start the material setup for the screen and how it relates to the material flash invoke function, because I don't think I covered that particularly well in the script while we were writing it. So I'm just going to bring up material editor and I'm going to select our screen, and you can see the screen is made up of two submaterials. The first one is the metal body, which is the bit the player is holding. And the second one is the screen itself, where we've got the SWF file. We could change that to GFX if we wanted. There's actually a scale form converter in the tools folder, so we could do that if we needed to. But for now, it'll accept SWF, so that's fine. As you can see, it's 1 and 2 in the material editor. But if we go back to the material flash invoke function, let me just bring up Notepad++, you can see we're actually targeting 1. Well, the reason for this is the material flash invoke function, the material ID actually starts at 0. So 0 is 1 and 1 is 2. So it can be a little bit confusing. The parameters for it are slot, which is usually 0, which is the first parameter. The second one is the material ID, the actual material ID slot you're targeting. And the third one is the texture slot, which is usually defaults for 0 as well. And finally, the last one is the method name, which is the one you're going to pass into your Flash file and name your Flash function the same, so it'll call that. I just wanted to go over that briefly because that can be a little bit confusing when you're setting up your own textures and using it with material flash invoke, so it's just something to note. So I'm going to quit out of this, and we're going to start writing the Flash file. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is open up Flash. If you don't have a copy of Flash, you can download the CS5 demo from their website, which is free for 30 days and allow you to create anything you want without limits for 30 days. So it's definitely worth taking the trial. And we're going to do File and New. And we're going to choose Actionscript 2. And we're going to go to Modify, Document. And we're going to change the dimensions for a start. So 512 by 512. And we're going to change the background color to black. No particular reason, it's just easier on the eye. Okay, so we have our document ready to go. The first thing we're going to do is make some layers. So what we're going to do is bring up the timeline, and we're going to make several layers. We're going to have in total 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. The top layer we're going to call Actionscript, and we're going to keep all our script in there. The second layer we're going to call Player, because that's going to be our player indicator. The third layer is going to be waypoint, and the final layer is going to be the map layer. Okay, so I think the first thing we should do is create a map layer, seeing as that's one of the most important areas. So I'm going to resize this a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to get the rectangle tool, and I'm going to make sure that the stroke is invisible and the fill color is any color, really, makes no odds. So we're going to make sure the magnetic snap to object is on, and we're going to drag that across the screen to make a full size rectangle, or square in this case. And we're going to change that to 512 by 512 and make sure position is 0, 0. So it's dead in the middle. The next thing we're going to do is modify, convert to symbol, and we're going to change this into a movie clip. The most important thing to make sure is the registration point is dead center. You can change it here to anywhere you like, top corners or the middle, top, bottom, but we want the center. And we're going to call this movie clip map, and we're going to click OK. Now we're going to make sure the movie clip is instance name is map as well. Now this is where the map is going to be loaded into. We're going to dynamically load the map into this movie clip. So it'll load with the registration point in the middle. It'll load, say, whatever size map it's going to be. It'll load dead center. Okay, now a very important step that we need to do before we go any further is we need to change the rotation of this map. Because what you'll find later is if you don't change the rotation, the map will be offset in a really weird, odd way. So to fix this, before that even happens, we're going to go and highlight the map, and we're going to Window, Transform, and we're going to go to Rotate and type -90. So we've rotated the entire map movie clip -90. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select our map, and we're going to go modify, convert to symbol, and we're going to make another symbol with a registration point central again, and we're going to call this one map holder, and we're going to click OK, and we're going to make sure that's an instant name is map holder also. Okay, so we have map holder, and inside map holder we have map, and inside map there's nothing so far. So we go back to the scene. The next thing we're going to create is the player's position. So we're going to go to the player layer, and we're going to click on an empty frame, and we're going to create some kind of indicator for our player. Okay, so we're going to go to view, grid, show grid, and we're going to create our player layer now. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide the map for a minute, and we're going to zoom in a little bit. So let's make this 400% for a minute. And we're going to draw our player icon. So what we're going to do is we're going to have, let's just make it a white indicator, and we're going to draw some kind of triangle. Okay, let's just zoom out a little bit and see if that's the right size. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, let's go back here, and we're going to fill this with black. Actually, we're going to fill this with white. And we're going to double click the line around the outside, and we're going to change that to black. Or charcoal grey in this example. Okay, so we're going to grab that, and we're going to do modify, convert to symbol. And again, make sure the registration point is in the middle. And we're going to call that CP for center point. Okay, and we're going to make sure that the instance name is also CP. And let's zoom out and make sure this is in the middle. Now we're going to set this to 256 and 256 to make sure it's absolutely central. This is going to be our player marker around which the map will rotate. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is to create our waypoint icon. So we're going to grab the oval tool from the list, so here, and we're going to hold down shift, and we're going to drag to get a perfect circle. Now we're going to select this, and we're going to go modify, convert to symbol, and we're going to call this WP for waypoint. Make sure the registration point is in the middle again. So now we've got a movie clip called waypoint, so we're going to instance name it and call it WP for waypoint as well. And we're going to go into this, and we're going to change to the rectangle tool, and we're going to drag out a rectangle. This isn't particularly pretty, but you guys can make a lot more effort with the design. So once we dragged over a rectangle on the same layer, we can then delete the inside lines because they combine when you drag them on the same layer. And we're going to make a new layer in the timeline above it, and we're going to select the text tool, and we're going to make sure it's set to dynamic text, and we're going to change the color to white. And we're going to click, and we're going to write waypoint name, and we're going to drag that out until it all fits in there, and we're going to drag this bottom one so it's neat. Okay, and we're going to move this using the arrow keys. We're going to move this around until it's in the right position. The text waypoint name is going to be interchanged with whatever our waypoint name's called. So what we need to do is we need to update this text box. So we change the instance name to WP name, because that's what we're going to call it in our action script in a minute. The next thing we need to make sure we do is to change the embedding. So go to character embedding, and we'll choose uppercase, lowercase, and numerals, depending on what you want for your waypoint names. That should cover pretty much everything, unless you put strange symbols in there. If you do happen to put some strange symbols in your waypoint name, then obviously you'll need to add the extra punctuation and the other sets that you'd need to cover that. Okay, so we've got the dynamic text box now, and we're going to go back to the scene, and we're going to drag our waypoint off to the side for the moment. Okay, that's literally all the design done now. So what we're going to do is File, Save As, and we're going to just go to the SDK. I'm going to go Game, Libs, UI, and we're going to save it in here, and we're going to call it Tutorial Map, and save the Flash file. Okay, now we need to start writing our action script. So I'm going to go to the top of the timeline in our new empty frame, and I'm going to start writing some action script. Okay, the first thing we need to do is create a function. Now, if you remember back in the action script in the file we wrote, we called it mapNav. So we need to make sure the function in our action script is mapNav as well. So we're going to do mapNav equals function, and we're going to open a bracket. Okay, we're going to go down to a new line. Oops. And we're going to start bringing in the arguments that we had in our LUA file. Now, this doesn't actually matter what you call them here, as long as they're in the same order as the list in the LUA script. So POS-X, POS-Y, heading, map name, self, WPX, self, WPY, etc. We can replicate these with any names we like, but as long as they're the same order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call these F for float, POS-X, and I'll put a comma, and then I'll do F POS-Y, and I'll put a comma. I'm going to do F heading, F map file path. I missed a comma off the end of that one. F WPX, F WPY, F WP name, and finally F WP on off. And I can put another bracket to close that. Now I'm going to open up a curly bracket, and I'm going to start writing some script. Now what we want to do first of all is we want to find the center point, and we want to offset the waypoint to the center point. So what we're going to do is underscore root to target the WP on the timeline, main timeline. It's underscore root because it's sitting on the main timeline at the moment. And we're going to do dot underscore X. So the X value, the X axis of the movie clip WP, is going to equal underscore root dot CP, which is our center point, the player point movie clip we created before, underscore X. So the X value of the waypoint is now going to equal the X value of the center point, but we're going to offset it by adding the waypoint's X position that we've got coming in from our function. So plus FWPX. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with Y. So we're going to get the root, and we're going to target waypoint and its Y axis, and we're going to make sure that is equal to the root center point Y axis minus FWPY. Now it's minus because it's actually works the opposite way around. So you'll see from testing, if you change it to plus, that it actually moves the wrong way on the axis. So we need to change it to minus instead. Okay, so just to go over that again, we're offsetting the position of the waypoint from the center point on the Flash file by the amount coming in from our LUA script. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we're going to give the dynamic text in the waypoint name the argument coming in from our LUA script again. So we're going to do root waypoint and target waypoint name, which is the dynamic text field, and we're going to target the text of that text field with FWP name. Okay, and finally what we're going to do now is we're going to tell the waypoint clip to go to and stop on the on and off toggle that we chose to make earlier, like in the LUA script. I'm going to go back and create that in a minute just to show you. So underscore root dot waypoint go to and stop, and then FWP on off. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our waypoint name, or our waypoint, and we're going to create a new layer, which we've just here, and we're going to create another frame. So we're going to right click on the next frame over, and we're going to do insert blank keyframe. Okay, so as you can see, what we've done is we've created two frames. The first frame has the waypoint showing, and the second frame doesn't. Okay, what we need to do now is we need to do two stop actions. So stop and close that. And we need to add a stop action to this frame as well, so the timeline stops playing. Okay, so when we tell it to go to frame 1, it's going to stop on frame 1. When we tell it to go to frame 2, it's going to stop on frame 2. Okay, let's go back to our scene now. And we can continue with the script. Okay, the next thing we're going to deal with is the player's position and rotation. So we're going to create a new variable, var player x offset equals. Now we want to use the f pos x position coming in. And we've got to times that by -1 because we want to actually make it move in the opposite direction. So we need to times it by -1. We're going to create another variable and we're going to player y offset equals f pos y. And we don't need to times that by anything because the axis is working correctly. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start moving the map around. So we're going to do _root map holder map dot underscore x equals player x offset, which is the variable we just described. And we're going to do root map holder map underscore y, and we're going to call that player y offset. Now we're going to make sure we're getting the rotation correct. So we're going to do root map holder dot underscore rotation equals f heading. Okay, now I'm just going to explain how this works a little bit. Basically what happens is, let's hide this for a minute. Let's go back to our map layer. Let's hide these other layers and open the map layer up. Now you see the map holder, and then inside the map holder is map. So what is actually happening is map is making the X and Y transitions. Let's undo that. And we'll go back. And map holder is actually making the rotations. So map holder is following the player's rotation. And inside map holder, the map itself is translating on the X and Y axis. So it doesn't matter which way the player's facing, the map inside is always going to translate on the X and Y axis. So that's how you deal with having the map rotate and translate. It's the only way of doing it to make it work. So let's unhide those for a minute. Let's go back to our action script again. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to connect the waypoint to the player, or the player's icon in the middle of the screen, with a dynamic line. Now there's a load of different ways we could go about this. We could do it, for example, Grand Theft Auto style, where the icon reaches the edge of the map, and when it reaches the edge of the map it stays there until the player gets close enough for it to translate further, so the player knows which direction the waypoint's in even though it's out of view of the map. But in this example we're just going to join with a dynamic line just to do something slightly different. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an empty movie clip called WP Canvas, and we're going to use that to draw a line between the waypoint location and the player's location in the center of the map. Now just before I continue, I've just noticed that I'm missing a semicolon on the end of player offset Y, so let's just change that. Okay, so let's start on this. So we're going to do root dot on enter frame equals function. So we're making a new function which is going to run every time it enters the first frame. And just to make sure that it toggles correctly, we're going to use the waypoint on and off that we defined before, so it only draws it if the waypoint is active. So we're going to do if fwp on off equals 1, close the bracket and open a curly bracket. Now we're going to start drawing. What we're going to do is first of all we're going to clear this movie clip we're going to create called WP Canvas every frame for a start. So we're going to do underscore root WP Canvas dot clear and 2 brackets and close that. Now we're actually going to create the canvas, empty movie clip. So we're going to do _root create empty movie clip, and we're going to call it WP canvas. And this next one is basically the sorting order of where it's going to, which level it's going to draw this line at. There's a myriad of different ways of doing this. This is just a very simple way of experimenting with which layer it draws on, but because we want the line to be drawn underneath the player icon in the middle of the screen, we're going to choose a very low level. So for this example, -16372 should, oops, 72 should do it. And we're going to close that, and we're going to put a semicolon. Now we're going to start defining the line. So we're going to do root WP in our new canvas, line style. And there's 3 things to this. There's the thickness of the line, so we're going to make it a thickness of 3. And the next one is the color, so we're going to do a yellowish color, which is 0xFFFF00. You can look in the color swatch at the top to get the hexadecimal color numbers, comma, and the third one is the alpha setting, so we're going to just do 100 because we don't want it to be see-through at all, and we're going to close that. Now we're going to tell the line where to start and where to stop. So first of all, we're going to tell the canvas clip to move to the center of the screen, which is the CP point, the center point where we define the player's icon. So we're going to do _root WP canvas move to _root dot CP for center point dot _x and _root dot CP dot _y, and we're going to close that. So the canvas, the empty movie clip canvas, is going to move to the center of the screen for a start, and then we're going to tell it where to draw the line to. So we're going to say _root WP canvas line 2, and we're going to draw it to the waypoint. So _root WP _x, then a comma, and then _root dot WP dot _y. Okay, and finally we're going to add a clause in the middle, which is going to clear the canvas script if WP on and off is equal to 0. So we don't want it to draw a line if there's no waypoint. So what we're going to do is open a bracket and else. This is to complement our if statement, and we're going to say _root dot WP canvas dot clear, and we're going to close that bracket and close that, so the if statement and the function are closed. You can find out more about the drawing API on Google. If you look up Actionscript 2 Flash drawing API, you can find a lot more information about it there and how you can draw different lines in Actionscript. Okay, and finally for this Actionscript, we're going to load the movie clip of the map itself, or we're actually going to load the map into a movie clip that we defined earlier, which is the map empty movie clip map we called earlier. So we're going to do load movie, and we're going to open a bracket, and we're going to say img : / and close that, and we're going to do plus the map file path, which is fmap file path, which is from our LUA script, and we're going to load it into _root map holder map, and we're going to close that bracket, and we're going to close the entire function. Okay, so that's all our Actionscript done now. We can save this and we can publish it, or if we need to actually go to publish settings and make sure it's in the right place, so Flash game libs UI, and we'll call it tutorial map. Yeah, we'll replace that and we'll publish it again. You can actually look at some of the settings as well. We could crank up the JPEG quality to 100, and we'll publish it again. Okay, so now we're just going to jump into CryEngine3 and check it works. And we're going to jump in and we're going to pick up a map and see what happens. Okay, it seems to be working. Now, I just need to make sure that we understand one point. For a start, we can see in the console that we're getting an error about not using preloaded texture. So first of all, we're going to solve that. Close this. And we're going to go to the CryEngine3 SDK. And we're going to go Game. And we're going to go to the Game Data Pack. And we're going to go Libs UI. And what we want is the texture preload XML. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to Libs UI. And I'm going to drag the texture preload into Libs UI. So we've got a copy of it in there. Okay, and now we're going to open it up and edit it. Okay, now you can see in here, this is where we preload textures to be used with the Flash interface for both loading screens and for the actual mapping system itself for even the normal game map. What we're going to do is we're going to preload our texture so we don't get this error anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to do open bracket preload file equals game /levels /single player /mapping test /grid.dds. This is obviously going to be wherever you're going to keep your map files, but in this case we're just going to keep it in the map folder. And we're going to save that, and we're going to go back to CryEngine3 again. And we're going to pick up the map, and we should not have this error anymore. Okay, yep, it's gone. Okay, for the very final part of the tutorial, I thought I would just go over the level design aspect of what we've created and how we can utilize it in our levels. The first thing we need in the level is the map tutorial entity. This has to be in your level somewhere. It doesn't matter where, as long as it's in there somewhere. The second thing you're going to need is the screen map screen, which is located under Entity, Items, Map Screen. Now, the map screen itself has to be named Screen Test, or whatever you named it in the script. There is other ways of doing it, which would probably be better, but for the time being, this was the quickest and easiest way of doing it, so feel free to expand on that. But as long as it's called Screen Test or whatever you had in your LUA script, it'll pick it up. The next one that we need is the waypoint. You can place that anywhere to begin with and just beam it around the map as you see fit, but probably best to start it on the first waypoint location and then move it from there. Okay, let's just go and look in the setup of the flow graphs to see what we've got. So the map tutorial entity itself is accepting a string with the name of the map that we want to load. As you can see, because it's a string, we can load it dynamically, so we can change map whenever we feel like it, or we can change to different versions of the same map. Now, something to note here that I didn't really speak about when we were writing the Flash file is the map file itself. Now, the easiest way is to have the DDS file as exactly the same size as your final map. So whatever map size you over, it's 1024 by 1024 or 2048 or 4096, etc. It's best to do it like that so you get a 1 meter to 1 pixel accuracy. If you wanted to have a different size map file to the different size actual map texture, then you can write the offset in Flash to change the scaling, which is actually quite easy to do, but for the sake of this tutorial we've just stuck with having the same size map file as map image, so that's the easiest way to go about that. And the next one is on the waypoint. We've created a little flow graph here, a very simple flow graph showing what we can do with that. First of all, with the start node, we're setting the name of the first waypoint to generator room, so it's going through a logic any into the waypoint name and triggered by the start node. We're also triggering a math to boolean to make it active on start, and our proximity trigger at the first location is doing a couple of things. First of all, when we enter the proximity trigger at the first waypoint, it's beaming the waypoint entity to a new location, which is defined by this tag point here. So there's a tag point at waypoint 2, and we're going to beam the waypoint entity to that. And also, when we enter the proximity trigger, it's also changing the name of the waypoint to shack. So as we enter the waypoint, it's string set string through the logic any into the waypoint name. So you can see it's quite easy to beam your waypoint around the map and change its name on the fly. And finally, as we enter the proximity trigger at waypoint 2, the last thing it's doing is to deactivate the waypoint so it disappears from a map. So it's just a matter of toggling the boolean on for true or false to the activate input to turn the waypoint on and off when you want it to show or when you don't want it to show on the map. Anyway, that pretty much covers everything, I think, now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the thread that I'm going to start this tutorial in at CryDev. If you're watching this on YouTube and you don't visit CryDev, I'll also include a link so you can visit there, or you can ask me questions in the comments if you wish as well. I'm going to include all the files from this tutorial with the actual tutorial pack, so you have everything to get you started, including this map, so you can test everything out first before you follow the video and start writing your own script. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something, and good luck with this, and I hope you managed to make something cool and interesting with it and something unique. So thanks again. Cheers. Bye-bye.